Helen Zille, is she likely to run for Johannesburg mayor at some point?
Well, you'll have to ask Helen Zille if she's running for Johannesburg.
You are a DA senior member in the...
Yes, I'll have to make up my mind this week because the deadline is Friday, but I'm thinking very hard. I'm speaking to my family. I'm looking at the pros and the cons, and I'm tending in the direction of doing so, but as I say, it's not final yet.
Helen Zille, the woman who said apartheid had some benefits and that BEE should be scrapped, now wants to be the mayor of the city of Joburg, the same Johannesburg where millions of black South Africans still live with the scars of apartheid and the violence of inequality. Should we trust her with this city? Let's talk. Greetings, my fellow South Africans. I'm Kondos from Inkari. It's time, and I speak for those who have been ignored by government, betrayed by politicians, and erased by history denialists. Helen Zille has confirmed the rumors. She wants to be your next mayor. But before anyone gets excited about clean governance, let's remember who she really is. Point 1. Her words expose her mindset. Zille once tweeted that Afrikaners succeeded because they took opportunities seriously and said there's nothing stopping others from doing the same. That's gaslighting, ignoring land disposition, Bantu education, job preservation, and generational theft. She blames the oppressed for being oppressed, and that is dangerous in a city like Joburg.
I was approached by someone who said, would I put my hat in the ring? And at first I just laughed and said, this is outrageous. And that was already about a year ago. And I was canvassing and doing a lot of headhunting for the right people. And we had some good prospects, some very good prospects. But you must remember that people from the very top echelons of business and society in general, across the board, of all backgrounds, to do a job like being mayor of Johannesburg and fixing Johannesburg at the salary of what they pay the mayor of Johannesburg is not very attractive to people. So that is the big issue there. And of course, that's not my issue. I don't mind about that. And my only obsession is to try and fix South Africa for my own grandchildren, but everybody else's children and grandchildren.
Point 2. Her politics don't serve the majority. The DA, under her influence, opposes land reform, dismisses affirmative action, and supports policies that maintain the status quo. Joburg doesn't need more technocrats protecting white capital. It needs justice, redress, and inclusion. Point 3. The trust gap. Let's be honest, most poor black residents of Joburg don't trust Helen Zille, and not without reason. She stood by while DA black leaders like Musima Imani and Herman Mashaba were pushed out. Now, how will she empower black communities when she doesn't even listen to them?
Let's be honest, the DA was never a party for the people. It was a party built to protect the comfort of a certain class, mostly white, mostly wealthy, mostly disconnected from the chaos the rest of the country lives in. Zille and her generation had their moment. But they didn't build something for the future. They built something for the suburbs, for people who wanted stability without transformation, safe politics, civil politics, dead politics. While the country was burning, they were still talking about policy clarity and fiscal discipline, like that is what starving families care about. They never adapted, they never evolved. They don't understand the language of hunger, rage, or dignity. They don't know the streets, and they don't know the shacks, and they don't want to. That is why the DA will never lead this country. You cannot fix a broken nation when you're only speaking to the 10% still pretending it's 1999.
DA being a racist party. Some people can't understand it because they think racism is simply explicit and overt. Right? So because the DA doesn't say in its constitution or manifestos or whatever, it's only for white people, because it doesn't now say that, therefore it's not a racist party. Well, here's the news flash, right? The DA's political philosophy, its ideology, is that of liberalism, right? Society is merely comprised of atomized individuals. Race, culture, whatever, it's religion, all these forms of collective being are actually irrelevant in a sense, right? And your prosperity in this life is purely and solely dependent on yourself. That's at the root of this political ideology. The economic doctrine is called neoliberalism, right? Cut the minimum wages, cut the welfare, scrap NSFAS, right? Keep the economy centered around private monopoly enterprises. Use the state only if it can back up the capitalist system. That's the philosophy behind neoliberal economic doctrine, right? So now we've got to ask ourselves, okay, how is this thing now, how is it racist? Okay, well, if you're going to cut NSFAS, you've cut out 80% of the population from the opportunity to have an higher education. Who's 80% of this population that happens to be poor and needing that education? It's black people, right? You want to cut the minimum wages. People are already being paid so little. You want to half it. I think it's 3,500 or something, this minimum wage. I can't remember exactly, but I remember in the previous local government elections, it was 3,500 from the ANC side. DA wanted 1,800. You're half minimum wages when you expect people to get out of poverty. How do you do that? If people don't have money in their pockets, they don't have disposable income, how are they supposed to improve?
Helen Zille might run a tight ship, but you can't fix a broken city by ignoring its broken history. Joburg doesn't need a mayor who denies the past. It needs a builder who understands it. Someone who knows that justice is not a nice to have, it's a necessity.
Well, the very first thing you have to do, and that's if I go through it and if I get the nod, because I mean the DA has very tough selection criteria. If I go through the process and get the nod, my first objective will be to stabilize the finances. Johannesburg has a capital infrastructure backlog of 200 billion rand. And the entire city's budget is 86 billion rand. So what are you going to do about that? And how are you going to address that? I have some ideas of how we could start to address that, but the bottom line is that it'll take more than 5 years. And what I can do is stop the rot and turn the ship around, or start turning the ship around, and then probably it'll be for my successor to steam off into the correct direction.
If you care about Johannesburg's future, speak up, organize, and say no to recycled leadership that doesn't represent us. Share this video, tag your community. Let's build leadership that understands the pain and the potential of the people. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Should Helen Zille run Johannesburg? Thank you for watching and take care.